So today on the show, we are going to be talking about providing pro level services to youth and teen athletes because, as we know, they're all training at a very high level and trying to figure out what we can do to treat the youngest just like we do the pros. So, on the show today, I have Dr. Shaun Garff, who is a sports medicine physician here in the DFW area with me. And we're going to be talking about really providing sports medicine services to youth and teen athletes, and then talking about how we partnered together with SportMed Connect, his business. But Dr. Garff, I'm going to let you introduce yourself first, and then we'll kind of get into our topic today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Amy. It's a great privilege to work with you over the last few years. We've been
Thank
working
you.
together. Shaun Garff. I'm a sports medicine physician here in DFW. Been here about 10 years. Treat anyone from 9-month-old trampoline injuries to 99-year-old arthritis patients and everyone in between. And yeah, I just enjoy being around active people. Generally speaking, you see a patient population who wants to get better. So that's always encouraging as a physician to be around people that want to maintain their health and be active, which is a lot of fun. So, and founded SportMed Connect about 2 years ago, where and we'll get more into this, obviously, but provide some of these pro level services to youth athletes, especially these club athletes and travel athletes that are very elite at a young age, and making sure we give them the correct resources that they'll need. So.
Awesome. And yes, we'll dive in a little more. So let's first start. So you see lots of youth, teen, kid athletes that you just mentioned are training like at very high levels, multiple sports, probably multiple practices a day. Obviously, my world of nutrition. So what would you say are some of the biggest like issues or challenges that you see both, with nutrition and those younger athletes? And when you're dealing with them with injuries, performance recovery, their parents, what would you say are some of the biggest issues?
Yeah, it's a common theme that we see, and honestly, I tell people like no one taught you how to run. You just get up and run, and
Right.
it's the same thing with nutrition. Honestly, no one's taught them how to eat. They just
Mhm.
eat what's in front of them as a kid. So I would say the biggest things we run into, the hurdles, are knowing what to eat and when to eat it, and then how much to eat. So I'd say those are kind
That.
of the three
Mhm.
areas that we struggle with a lot with these kids. And you mentioned and referenced this earlier is that they're doing so many different practices and they're doing so many different games. And so planning is a big issue, right? And so it's like all we
Mhm.
have is the Chick-fil-A that's on my way to practice, or the
Mhm.
bag of Takis, or the energy drink or whatever, making you cringe hearing all those
Mhm.
things. But that's literally what they have in front of them, and they're not thinking of it.
Right.
And certainly share some stories as we go here about athletes that I felt like should have been well fueled, and unfortunately they weren't. So understanding those concepts of what should I be eating to really enhance my performance, and treat my body with the respect that it deserves for what I'm asking it to do.
Yeah.
And then when to eat that, and then how much. That's a big problem with a lot of our athletes that are training so much. They really don't even understand what their daily expenditure is and how much they need to eat just to maintain, let
Mhm.
alone perform at the highest.
Yeah. It's interesting. So I've been a sports dietitian now for 20 years. Can't even believe that, but 20 years. And I'm like, it's different people doing the same dumb things. I mean, I still
Right.
see athletes eating a bag of Cheez-Its for lunch. And I'm like, how have we not progressed from 2006 to 2026? I'm convinced
Right.
we have taught more along the way. And
Yeah.
it's funny, kind of to your point, what you said, that I've heard it said that good nutrition can make a good athlete great, but bad nutrition can make a great athlete good. And I think
Yeah.
it's so true. And, when I talk to them, I'm always like, oh my gosh, like nutrition can really help give you an edge for performance, for recovery, for training, all the different things. And it's as if it just goes in one ear and out the
Yeah.
other. So I know when you're dealing with lots of young athletes, specifically like in the sports medicine world, you have parents also. So how do you go about like a conversation? Obviously, great sports medicine doctors like you often refer to sports dietitians, which we appreciate. But when you're in the middle of like having that conversation, we have lots of parents that listen to the show. What are you trying to help parents see as it relates to fueling their athletes, performance, training, recovery, all the things?
Yeah, so I think the thing that's resonated most with our athletes and parents is at an early age, I tried to help the athlete understand like we want to treat you like a professional.
Yeah.
You have to understand your body is the means in which you can perform and you can participate in the sport that you love so dearly.
Mhm.
So, how are we giving it the right fuel, nutrition, energy, all of those things, including how are we preparing for the
Yeah.
contest or the competition? From a physical standpoint, how are we recovering? What are we doing after? So all of those things play a role, but I really come back to the you want to treat yourself like a pro. You don't, the pros don't wake up on a Saturday morning, stumble out of bed, throw their running shoes on and start running, right?
Right.
And they just don't do that. So we've learned how to prepare the body for competition and for training through warm-up exercises. And I say the same thing with nutrition. They also don't just get up and go start training with nothing in their body
Right.
or with nothing after their workouts. They are very regimented. I remember being a team doc at a Division I university, and they had these little huts around the campus where the athletes could go in and get high
Little
quality
fuel
snacks and
huts.
fuel, these little fuel huts, exactly. So high quality snacks, high protein, things that were fueling their body throughout the day because these are kids coming into a college campus and they
Yeah.
haven't had the resources before or whatnot. So that was
Mm,
very, very important. So I keep telling these young kids, hey, I know you're 14, I know you're 15, but you have to think about how are you preparing your body for competition, both from a
mhm.
warm up and a physical standpoint and from a nutrition and hydration standpoint.
Yep.
We see so much in the world of cramping, and then they're trying to do all this stuff at the game. And I keep telling them, listen, I mean, we're going to do whatever we can to get you to play, but you're behind the ball. You've already
Yeah.
lost it. We should have been
Yep.
doing this yesterday and the day before and the week before. So
Mhm.
trying to help them understand you got to start thinking about participation, competition, training like the pros do, and let us
Yep.
make sure we get you those correct resources so you can think like that.
Love that. One of my favorite quotes, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but so Ray Lewis, obviously a small spectacle of human athlete as a football player, played till he was 37. I mean, I don't even know how many like, Pro Bowls he played in, tore his
Yeah,
tricep like off the
yeah,
bone like his last year,
right.
then like wins the Super Bowl and becomes MVP, like just crazy stuff.
Yeah,
And I use this a lot when I go speak, especially to high school male sports, because I think it's relevant. But he made this comment at one point in time, and he said, all these young kids, AKA like rookies, all these young kids come in eating their like fried food and fried chicken
mm,
sandwiches and drinking their soda. He was like, and they think they're going to beat me. He goes, I just tell them, you can't. Your fuel won't let you. I'm like,
nice,
yes, Ray. If I could just get him saying that. I'm
nice.
like, I love that quote so much. He was like, they think they're going to beat me. He's like, they can't. Your fuel won't let
Yeah,
you. And I was like,
I
I
love
love
it.
and because it is so true. And, I think like when athletes are injured or there's something wrong, all of a sudden we pay a lot of attention to nutrition because there's something wrong. And I'm like, perhaps if you would start paying attention to it before there was something wrong, we might, not going to say avoid, but reduce risk of injury
Right,
and cramping and all the things you were talking about.
right.
I mean,
Absolutely, 100%.
yeah. So I know we both share this like similar passion to, you've already alluded to it, to really trying to give all athletes like Pee Wee all the way up through before they get to pro level services. So, the youth athlete, I mean, I'm convinced that youth athletes, teen athletes, et cetera, almost probably train more than pro athletes because I think they've
Mm,
mastered like recovery. My mom, when I worked in the NFL, my mom was like, it's baffling to me. They just don't practice that much, compared to
yeah,
like my sister was
yeah,
a college athlete that practiced like at the 80,000 hours a week. But
right.
anyway, so we both shared this like love of really trying to expand services. I know that's why we started taking insurance for nutrition counseling because it's a way to provide access. So with SportMed Connect, you mentioned it at the beginning, but dive a little more into exactly like what it is and then also like why you started it and what we're trying to do to get it out, and then we'll expand some more on it.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think, as I mentioned before, I see patients every day in my
Mhm.
practice, and when what was became pretty clear to me is this gap in knowledge and access
Yeah.
to these types of services, and especially at the club level. High school, there still maintains a lot of rules in high school about how much you can practice and how much
Yeah.
coach time can be there. But then they go kind of to the wild, wild west of the clubs, and it's kind of like every club is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And some clubs are practicing, 4 days a week with private lessons, and then they're going to tournaments and they're
Yeah.
traveling, and there's a lot less restriction there. And so kids are just going, going, going. And then when the injury occurs, it's like all of a sudden, oh, we don't know where to go or what to do.
Right.
And so there's this gap. And again, talking about treating these kids like pros, when the pro gets hurt or when they have an ailment or an injury or a sickness or anything that's bothering them, they can pick up the phone and call their sports medicine team or text them right away. So,
Hmm.
how do we bring that same level of care to the club or to the youth athlete? And so,
Yeah.
what we've done at SportMed Connect is to be able to bring a full spectrum sports medicine team directly into a club and provide that 24/7 access to a sports medicine physician, a specialist, to understand the nature of the injury, to provide them access to amazing content in the
Yeah.
world of sports nutrition coming from you, of course, and one-on-one counseling, which has been
Hmm.
fantastic for a lot of our athletes. The mental side of the game, like, is
Yeah.
anyone teaching them the mental side of the game? And too often I just talked to a coach today, and he's like, I'm expected to be the nutritionist and the doctor and the
All.
trainer and the strength coach and
Mhm.
their psychiatrist, and
Yep.
he's supposed to do it all, right? But he's like,
Yep.
I would love to be able to say, let me teach you the skills and the tactics, and let me push everything else off to the experts.
Yes.
Because we know that Bob Stoops, he never taught all the Oklahoma kids all the nutrition and all
Right.
the
Right.
strength and conditioning. He had the team that did that. So we're the team behind the team that brings the experts to that club and allows them to focus on what they do best while we give the access to care that the players truly need and truly
Yeah.
deserve. Because you're right, they do sometimes train, and you talk about football, for instance, the amount of hitting that happens in a freshman
Yeah.
football team is way higher because some of these kids never hit before, so they have to learn how
Yeah.
to tackle. Where in the NFL, you hardly ever see
Pretty
them
good
actually
at
in
it.
full pads. They're pretty
Yeah.
good, right? I mean, you may
Yeah.
have one, maybe two full padded practices where there's actually contact, and even then, it's pretty rare that they're actually hitting each other. So yeah, I
Right.
think at a youth level, it's extremely important that they understand some of these principles and apply them. And we understand they're not going to be perfect,
Hmm.
but giving them some of this access. I'll share one quick story. I had a five-star recruit, one of the best football players in the country, in a state semifinal game, and he comes in at halftime. He's cramping, he can barely move. So I said, "What'd you have to eat today before the game?" This was a 5 p.m. game, and he said, "I had a couple donuts." I was like, "Oh, well, there's some short-term injury. What'd you have before that?" He's like, "Nothing." So you mean the whole day? He said, "The whole day I've only had two
Oh my
donuts." This
gosh.
is a
Like,
five-star
why?
recruit. Yeah, this is a
Why?
five-star recruit, a senior year. And again, that reiterates to me that's the expertise and the
Yep.
knowledge that's given at these high levels is not
Yeah.
being translated down.
No,
So we need to
not.
change that. We need
Yep.
to give them the access. And again, kids aren't going to be perfect. They're still going to have their talkies. They're still going to drink their energy drinks from
Yeah.
time to time. But we hope that at least they're having more than two donuts before a high level game, right? So we hope we can bring a little bit more help and resource to them.
Well, and that's always been the challenge, I think, in nutrition specifically for us is that elite athletes, like really elite athletes, are kind of good no matter what. Like
Sure.
they're naturally good. Like I used to joke working in the NFL, and I would tell my college dietitian friends because I worked there too, and I was like, just take the top three players from your team, and like my NFL team is the top three players of every team. And
Right.
what happens is when they're really good, whether that be high school level, college level, whatever level, I find that they're naturally can jump high and do this, whatever. And so they don't tend to pay as much, not all, but the majority don't tend to
Right.
pay as much attention to fueling because they're naturally pretty good. Now, might that athlete like cramp in the middle of a air-conditioned building football game in the second quarter? Why, yes, I've seen this happen many
Yeah,
times, and I'm
right,
like, are you kidding me? Perhaps you're
right.
underfueled and dehydrated. But that's like I think one of the biggest challenges there. What other like just going in? I know you've talked about like, your team goes into clubs and you literally like for all the coaches listening and all the parents listening, actually go into clubs, talk to the coaches, talk to the owners and see like what the challenges are. I mean,
Mm,
my experience of talking to clubs has been that like pretty much none of them provide nutrition, like none. A
mhm.
few might have a strength coach that pops in every now and again. Obviously, we work
Yep.
with Missy Mitchell Macbeth, and I know her and I have worked together with a volleyball club before. But like, what else do you see as just typically missing that is what you would deem like essential? I mean, I think obviously sports medicine, athletic trainer care, and talk a little
Mhm.
bit more about the 24/7 hotline. Because I just think that is
Yeah.
key. I mean, I've watched my sister like fall and sprain her ankle at club volleyball games like years ago, and it's like 10 p.m. at night. What are you gonna do? It's a mess. You're in
Right.
another city. So talk a little bit about kind of like what's missing when you go in and do those assessments, and then how specifically, I think from a sports medicine side, that that phone line, just so like parents are like, "What we want this in our club." Like, I just
Yeah.
think it's game changer. It's a game changer.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I think honestly, the word I think of is uncertainty.
Yes,
So
good.
when something happens, is what do we do next? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the medical community, we've created way too complicated of a system to understand. Like, okay, I've got an ankle injury. I know she's not
Hmm.
dying, but what do I do? What are my options? I don't have
Yeah.
another option. I have to go to the ER, and I'm waiting there for hours, and I spend the whole night there. And there's this person next to me that's hacking up a lung, and then the ambulance is coming with someone else in. I'm like, what am I
Yeah.
doing here? Right.
Yeah.
But the problem is uh we just don't know what to do. And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. It's just that you're a parent of this volleyball player and you're an
Hmm.
engineer by trade and a teacher, and you just don't have the medical
Yeah.
training other than when you were a kid and you remember some things.
Hmm.
And of course the mother's intuition is always key. We always have to pay
Yeah.
attention. But
Yeah.
I think just uncertainty is a really big issue. And
Hmm.
this travels from the club directors and being uncertain about what the coach is going to say and if they're going to force a kid back to play that shouldn't be and put them in
Yeah.
harm's way. It comes to the coaches like, I'm uncertain if I can put this kid back in, if they're just being kind of a wimp, and I need to teach them hard work and resilience and get
Yeah.
back in and rub some dirt on it because
Yeah.
that's what my coach told me 30 years ago.
Hmm.
And then uncertainty comes to the parent. They're like, this is
Yeah.
my baby and they're crying on
Yeah.
the court and I should call 911 because I don't know what else to do.
Yeah. What
Right.
else to do? Yeah.
So I think really one of our biggest missions and aims is to revolutionize the access to
Yeah.
care and understanding. Let us take that uncertainty away. Of course, we will be there whenever you need us 24/7. Within minutes, you can talk to a specialist on the phone
Yeah.
and be able to determine. We recognize patterns. People give doctors too much credit. We're really not that smart. We just recognize patterns very
Yeah.
well. And so we can recognize the patterns that maybe that is a true emergency and we're going to help you
Hmm.
get to the right place. But maybe it's not an emergency and we can let everything calm down, let the situation calm down. We can get some ice on it. We can order an x-ray. You don't have to
Yeah.
wait in an urgent care or an ER. We can order that
Yeah.
x-ray or that
That's
MRI.
awesome. Hmm.
And then we can follow up and get in a situation where we can get the appropriate care.
Yeah.
So I think, again, I come back to that constant idea of uncertainty when injury strikes, and then not really up to date evidence based guidelines on the things that can prevent them. We've talked about
Yeah.
nutrition, we've talked about mental performance and the anxiety
Hmm.
around some of these kids and how they perform.
Yeah.
We talked about strength and conditioning and really getting the highest level of up to date evidence and that information and those
Hmm.
resources to the kids. So again, we're not using that freshman coach who is he remembers his coach 30 years ago thinking
Right.
this is how we should train. We should walk out
Right.
in a cold environment and start doing our stretching, which we know in medical science now that's not the right thing for the muscle. We're actually going to do it more harm
Hmm.
than good. So why are we relying on these coaches? Again, they're
Yeah.
not bad. We want them to focus on the skill
Yeah.
and let us take care of the rest. So really bringing more assurance and certainty to the minds of the parents, the athletes, the coaches, the club owners,
Yeah.
directors, those kind of things. That's been a big challenge that we've seen.
Yeah. Well, and I think two things that are important to highlight here. Number one, you have medical professionals answering those triage calls. Like you have athletic
Correct.
trainers. You are not they're not talking to a someone in another country that's going to
Correct.
take their phone number and then get back to them. Like that's not the case. Like you're talking
Right.
to an athletic trainer who is designed to see, not know what's coming and know how to help it immediately. Like, dear athletic
Right.
trainers, we love you. Okay, so
Right.
that's number one is that they're talking immediately to a medical expert when they call. Number
Yes.
two, I don't want to mess up the statistics, so I'm going to let you give it. But what's
Yeah.
the statistic that you gave me of like injuries that can be diagnosed over a phone or like over a video call like this? Because this is
Yeah.
astronomical to me.
Yeah, so 80% of
So
our
crazy.
calls are triaged and treated over the phone with you
Hmm.
never having to step into a doctor's office. And again, it's pattern recognition, it's
Yeah.
understanding what the nature of the injury was or what the nature of the ailment was, and then being able to prescribe a protocol, an evidence-based rehab
Yeah.
program for them to get them back. And I
Mhm.
think uh, again, it's not necessarily rocket science. It's just
Yeah.
it's the protocols in place,
Yeah.
and it's making sure that they have certainty. And one of the things we encourage a lot of our athletes to do is we say call early and call often because
That's
we
what I
feel
say
like
about
there's a
eating.
there you go. Yes.
Eat
We
early,
we
eat
feel like
often.
perfect. We feel like there's a large amount of preventable injuries as well. And a lot of times, some of these non-contact injuries could
Yeah.
have been prevented if that ankle was more stable to begin with, or if that knee
Yeah.
was more stable. So a lot of these big injuries, there's some precursor, there's some signs. I mean, me
Yeah.
personally, I tore my ACL playing pickup basketball. And if you would have asked me the previous 6 months leading up to that, I would have told you my right knee had some popping and had intermittent pain.
Mhm.
It wasn't doing anything that would take me off the court or off out of the gym. I could still do all those things, but it was a little different than my right. So
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but if I were on a program earlier, would that have prevented my non-contact
Yep.
ACL? I think a lot of the data is showing that there are things we can do to prevent. Of course, there's freak
Yeah.
accidents, we get
Yeah.
that, but I think that's a big thing for us is call early, call often. 80% of the time, we can get you a
Yeah.
good, solid program that's going to get you feeling very, very comfortable. And then we follow up, right? You
Yeah.
expect in anywhere from 2 to 3 days, someone actually sending you a message saying, "How is your daughter doing?"
Love that. Yep.
And do we need to do more for her? Do we need to do
Yeah.
less? Is she ready to return? Can we send a message to the coach or that
Hmm.
strength coach, helping her understand kind of that return to play? Because we do
Yeah.
get plenty of patients that say, I was in the urgent care. They told me I had a hamstring strain, and then I just sit out for 6 weeks, and then I can go right back into full 100% soccer, right? And it's like that's not how the body works,
No, not at
and we
all.
don't want to do that. So
Yeah.
that's something we see a lot.
Well, and I think something that's really important to what you're saying about like call early, call often, something that's different about the youth teen athlete that you don't have at like maybe at some in college, but not at the pro level, is you still have growth and development going on.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah,
like kids that have grown fast and that are more lanky, or kids that maybe have not grown into their bodies, or their bones grew faster than, them putting on muscle or whatnot. Like all of those features play into balance and coordination and training. And are their joints stable enough? I mean, I know enough about all that stuff just from being around it so much in sports. Like growth and development is something totally crazy that's going on. And no one can really predict exactly what's happening or that a kid's going to grow here or
right.
not grow there, that joints are developing or all, their bones are still developing. So I think that that's a whole nother factor in regards to like call early, call often, because we have like
Yeah.
another unstable thing going on that you may not know
Mhm.
like the state of it at that point in time.
Sure. Yeah. Overuse, unfortunately, overuse
Yeah.
and overtraining. And we do from
Mhm.
athletes, we do fine arts as well. We do dance
Yeah,
and
dance.
cheer
Mhm.
athletes and these
Dancing.
athletes work so hard. But like you said, in this age group of, 10 to 14, where their bones
Yeah.
are growing like crazy, they can't quite catch up. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's heard of these crazy terms like Osgood Schlatter or Sever's disease, and these sound like really, but you resonate with that because I was like, oh yeah, I knew someone that had this knee pain when they were growing called Osgood
Hmm.
Schlatter, right? And so
Yeah.
these overuse and overtraining injuries with growth and development, they're a big thing. And so
Yeah.
how do we recognize that? How do we get that information to the coach
Yeah.
appropriately and make sure your kid is safe in their training?
Yeah. Even my sister, she has a 10 and 7-year-old, both are active. And I was like, well, their growth plates aren't like you can see that their growth plates aren't closed. She's like, what are you talking about? Like she's never even
Right,
heard the phrase. I was like, oh, okay, never mind. But yeah, totally.
right,
Okay. I just think that that's so important. And it's also super important when it comes to like nutrition as well, because kids often will be really, really, really hungry before they're actually growing. Or then there's times that it kind of lags off, so it's so interesting. I mean, just all the components that play in kids and teens are like their little bodies are just like moving targets, I feel like, because so many things
for
are
sure.
changing all of the time. Okay,
And
so
everyone, sorry, I'll
no,
just
go
add
ahead.
this
No,
one thing as we talked
add.
about the nutrition. The number one thing we talk to kids about when we see overuse injuries, whether it's a tendonitis or what's called an
Mhm,
apophysitis, which is a growth plate
mhm.
inflammation,
Ah,
or a stress injury, stress fractures, shin splints, all of those. Every single time we see those, we bring them back to, are you fueling yourself
yep.
properly? Because at the end of the day, what's likely happening is you have too many calories
Mhm.
out and not enough calorie in.
Yep.
And especially the right calorie in,
Yep,
right? And
totally.
again, the bean and cheese from Taco Bell and the side of Takis is not the right calorie in, right? So we've got to be careful there a little bit. But simply just the calorie in.
Yeah.
We see this unfortunately a lot of our performance sports and fine arts
Yep.
and cross country where they're trying to wrestling, trying to maintain a
Make
certain
weight.
weight.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, but we see that. And so these
Yeah.
overuse injuries, it's key to come take a step back and say, okay, how are we training?
Yep.
But really, really importantly, how are we fueling? And that's where we
Yep.
love to connect you and bring the dots
Yeah.
together and say, we got to get the fuel right. Otherwise, this is not
Yep.
going to heal and you're not going to be able to keep doing what you like to do.
Yep. I've always said to athletes many times under fueling can manifest itself as overtraining because the body's
Yep.
worn down and it's
Yeah.
not getting enough energy. And to the point of fueling daily activity, fueling practices and training, but fueling growth and development. And that's something that doesn't have a number to it because you'll never know really when it's happening. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's oftentimes athletes are just under or they're exhausted because they're not taking in enough nutrition. And when you're
Yeah.
exhausted, you do things like trip and fall and you're not
Yeah.
as coordinated and all, it's so all linked together. Oh my gosh, so all linked
For
together.
sure.
Okay, so
For
talk
sure.
a little bit. So, especially for like coaches listening, club coaches, parents, etc. So, when SportMed Connect like comes into a club, let's talk about like specifically. Obviously, we've talked about the injury hotline, which I love, as you all can see. But that, what can they expect to see, and what can they expect to be offered to them as a part of a club? Going, yeah, we're in, and we want to treat our athletes like pros.
Yeah. Yeah, great question. So the way I like to tell people is think about having a, complete sports medicine team or
Mhm.
a team doctor for your
Yeah.
specific club. So again, I bring back to the example when I'm working at a collegiate
Hmm.
program or at a
Hmm.
professional level program, they have access to physicians and
Yeah.
to nutritionists and mental performance, but a club can't afford to pay each one of those individuals and have
Yeah.
them on staff. So we're going to create that virtual environment for you. We're not a brick and mortar. We don't go set up shop right next to your club,
Mhm. Right.
but we provide, again, the injury hotline. We provide webinars at a regular cadence where we bring in professionals like yourself to talk about
Mhm.
nutrition, mental performance, how parents should talk and treat their kids
Yep.
after competition, how to build resilience in our young athletes. We talk about strength and conditioning specific. We had a really fun webinar series end of last year where we
Yeah.
brought
Different
specific teams in
sports.
different sports. So think about learning from these high level volleyball specific, like Missy, we've talked about her. She could talk to the volleyball kids in a different way than someone like Jose could talk to the baseball players,
Mhm.
or Mel could talk to the basketball players.
Basketball
So we
players.
bring
Yeah.
in these pro level um,
And when you
uh,
say, let's clarify,
personnel.
you don't just mean pro level, you mean Melvin Sanders, who played for the San Antonio Spurs, and Jose Vasquez,
Correct.
who was the strength coach for in Major League Baseball for 18 years. I worked with him at the Texas Rangers for 6 years. Missy, who's worked at college level, high school level,
Right.
club level, volleyball. So when he says pro, he means like real life pro. Continue on.
Yeah. And I
I
think
mean, like
again,
real people, people that are like
yeah,
no,
yeah,
and that
yeah,
are
yeah.
training athletes that are
Right.
pros that are training these young athletes as well. So keep going.
These are active. These
Yeah,
it's not just it's not your, doc in a box down the
yeah,
street, right? Like
yeah,
again, that's part of our mission is to revolutionize access to care
yeah.
and we want to give the best of the best. So part of what we do constantly is building our back end engine and our back end
Yep.
team. And we work with people nationwide on this to provide the best of the best possible.
Hmm.
I had a club tell me, you know what? I feel like sometimes I'm at the Ritz-Carlton and I'm calling down to the concierge
I
desk.
love
That's kind of
it.
how I feel.
Yeah.
The concierge desk is not going to make the pizza for us, but they're going to tell us the best pizza on that block to
Yeah.
get
It's
delivered
a
to
good way to
us,
think
right?
about it.
And so
On
that's the
whole
way we
grain
think of
crust, their
sport
best
medicine.
pizza on whole grain crust with
Perfect.
vegetables on it.
There we go. Yes, exactly. A perfect macro balance for you.
Yes,
Um,
100%. Served with salad.
but yeah, no, we want to be that Ritz-Carlton of
Yeah.
service, and really provide them. So that's what you expect, right? When
Yep.
when a club partners with SportMed Connect, they feel that connection, they feel that concierge, they feel that, and it's when you have it, you don't want to go away from it because
Right.
when your kid is crying and you don't know what to tell them, and I get this a lot too. Moms, you are so right 95% of the time, but guess how many times that kid wants to actually listen to you? I can't tell you how many times I get on the phone and say, I tell the kid, this is what we should do our next step. And mom says, I think I told you so, right? You should
How
have just
many
listened to
times?
me.
Yep.
Happens
Yep.
all the time, right? But that kid just needed to hear from someone else. They needed to hear from a doctor. They needed to hear from someone that says,
Yep.
hey, I take care of a pro football player and
Yep.
he's just like you, but 15 years later. So
Yep.
this is what I would tell him. And now all of a sudden there's buy-in, and now the mom looks like, oh, I do know something, right?
Yep.
So that's what a club can expect, right?
Yep.
That kind of care, that kind of service. You need a physical therapist. People like Sanders Fit, people like Jeremy McSpadden that we
Hmm.
work with. These are just invaluable partners that
Yep.
that treat high level athletes that are great at what they do. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, in the medical world, sometimes we're a little trusting of what we hear from the PA down the street. And
Yeah.
they may be great at a lot of things, but they may not be great at sports.
Yeah. Yep.
And so we want to make sure that we're getting that level of care. So that's what that club should expect to
Yep.
have, that type of connection, that type of concierge.
Love it. And side note as well that this is all over. So we all of our partners that the sports nutrition playbook, also being a partner with SportMed Connect, we all act virtually. So we all have virtual ability to work all over the place. And so like for us, we take insurance for one-on-one nutrition counseling, medical insurance. We're licensed in all 48 continental states and DC. If you're in Alaska, I mean, call me. I'll try to work it out, but not there yet. But we do that. And to your point, like all the like mental coaches, they can help do mental performance like
Right.
virtually, the calls virtually. And I think it's also important to note that the calls and all these services aren't just accessible to the club and to the coach, they're accessible to the parent. Like the parent
Correct.
of the athlete. So there's lots of scenarios that I know I've been in where like the coach is the direct access to the resource, but in this
Yeah.
situation, the parent has access to the injury hotline. Like
Right.
the parent has access to get one-on-one nutrition counseling for their athlete or athletes or their whole family. The parent can access mental performance coaches. So that's what's great when SportMed Connect comes in. Yes, the coach and the club has access to it, or coaches and the club, but so do the parents have that direct access. And I think that that's probably even more rare, honestly. It's oftentimes being filtered through a coach, and we're trying
Yeah.
to do the best that we can to give it out. And yes, I will put a plug in for my webinar, which is February 17th, where we're talking
There we
about fueling
go.
training competition. So
Yes.
that's a good reason to be connected with SportMed Connect. So speaking of connecting, so for anybody that's listening, coaches, maybe athletic trainers that are interested in like talking, maybe clubs that they work with, parents that are like, my kid's club needs this. What should they do as a next step to find out more and or get connected to SportMed Connect?
Yeah, so they can visit our website. There's a contact us link on our website that they can fill out, and we'd be happy to connect there. Sportmedconnect.com. So that's intentional. A lot of people hear about sports medicine. There's always an S on it. So think of us as Sport Med Connect without the S. Or they can shoot an email at info at sportmedconnect.com. That's another way to get a hold of us. Again, if you're just looking for more information and how does this work, and I'd love to hear more about it, or I'd love to connect you with my coach or more club. And we've had a lot of parents do that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of parents have reached out to us and say, hey, I would love my daughter's team to have this because this is kind of the wave of the future. I mean, I think since
Mm,
COVID, people would think about like, how often do I have to go sit in the urgent care now for a
yeah.
sinus infection? With all the telehealth companies out there,
Yeah.
most people say I can just sit in my pajamas on my couch and I can call a doctor and I can get that sinus infection taken care
Mhm.
of, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't actually step foot in there anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a wave of the future for how we treat our athletes to be able to get them instant access to care. And
Yeah.
sometimes 20% of the time, we need to have a
Yeah.
physical exam. We need to have
Yeah.
an X-ray, an MRI, and that's okay. We're going to connect you with the best of the best. But for the majority of what we see and how to give the correct and appropriate care to the athletes, we can do that virtually, which has been a fun thing to see grow and enhance.
Yeah.
And again, I'll repeat, you're talking to a real life person
Yeah.
here that understands athletes, that understands sports, and
Mhm.
understands recovery and how to get you better. So yeah, we'd love to reach out, have you reach out and explain more. But this has been a real pleasure speaking with you, Amy,
Yes.
and I love our partnership. And you're so invaluable. A really large entity we just talked to today was like, you know, one of the things that we miss a lot is nutrition for athletes
Mhm.
and mental performance for athletes.
Yeah.
And you guys are bringing us this service, which is amazing. So
Love it.
we're
So
super honored to
fun to
be
be a
partnered with
part of
you.
something bigger. And what I really love is not like one thing. We're providing all the things. And we all
Right.
know as an athlete, like it's not about one thing. It's about the nutrition, it's about the strength, the mental performance, the medicine side of a sports medicine side of everything. And that's where
Yeah.
we really can, when all the things kind of come together, is I think where we get the best chance of getting the healthiest athlete that performs the best, recovers the fastest, and hopefully is at a reduced risk for injury, illness, all the different types of things. So I will
For sure.
also say that if you missed all of his websites and information, it's in the show notes. So we have the sportmedconnect.com website, info at SportMed Connect email, and we also have the Instagram handle in there as well. So you can just click very easily from the show notes and get in touch. And we would love to connect with all of you for, and you don't, you know, you can take advantages of the services that you want, the services that you need most. It's not an all or nothing. So I would tell you, reach out. Like this is a service. I talk to everyone. I mean, I love my nutrition and everything that I do, but I'm like, have you heard about the injury hotline? I mean, that's just like game changer because I've seen so many things happen at after 10 o'clock at night at games.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, Dr. Garf, thank you so much for being on. Love what you're doing and what you're doing to elevate high school sports, club sports, youth sports across the board.
Thanks, Amy.